Sophia, here is your wedding invitation. I looked at the gold-embossed card handed to me by my assistant, which bore my name and Leon's. Tomorrow would be our wedding day. My phone suddenly vibrated with an anonymous message, room 1208 at the Grand Hyatt Hotel, your fiancé is inside. I stared at the screen, my heartbeat inexplicably accelerating. Jason, cancel all my appointments for today. I stood up and grabbed my car keys. The Grand Hyatt Hotel was right across from the company, and I arrived in 3 minutes by car. In the elevator, I gazed at my reflection. Tomorrow, I would don that $1 million wedding gown and become Leon's wife. Outside room 1208, I heard a familiar voice. Brother Leon, tomorrow you're marrying that old woman, will we still be able to meet afterward? The voice was soft and coquettish, it was my best friend, Vivian. You silly girl, I'm marrying her only for the shares in the Sue Group, in my heart, there's only you. Leon's voice carried a tenderness I had never heard before. But she loves you so much, she's transferred all the company's shares to you. Love? Leon sneered. She thinks she's smart, but she's just a fool. Once I gain control of the Sue Group, the first thing I'll do is divorce her, and then split half the assets with her, so we can be together. My hands were trembling as I gripped my phone tightly. 3 years ago, my father had a sudden heart attack and passed away, leaving behind the Sue Group, valued at $5 billion. As a woman holding up such a large enterprise, it was indeed exhausting. After meeting Leon, I thought I had found someone to entrust my life to, even transferring 49% of the company's shares to him. Brother Leon, you're so naughty, Vivian giggled coquettishly. The sounds that followed nearly made me vomit. I turned and left, sitting on a sofa in the hotel lobby for a full 2 hours. My phone rang, it was Leon. Honey, tomorrow is our big day, I'm at the company handling the last bits of work, so I won't be home tonight. Rest early. His voice was still so gentle. Okay, you rest early too. My voice was eerily calm. After hanging up, I dialed the wedding planner's number. Hello, is this William? This is Sophia, tomorrow's wedding is cancelled. Miss Sophia, the wedding is tomorrow, cancelling now will incur significant losses. I'll bear the losses, cancel it immediately. Okay, I'll arrange it right away. Next, I made dozens of calls, to the hotel, photographer, band, florist. Everyone asked why, but I simply repeated the same phrase, the wedding is cancelled. The last call was to my lawyer. Attorney Charles, I need you to do something for me. Sophia, go ahead. I want to reclaim all of Leon's shares, effective immediately. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. Sophia, the share transfer agreement has a clause that if you don't formally marry, the shares automatically revert. However. But what? But it needs to be proposed within 24 hours before the wedding, there's still time now. I checked the time, it was 10 p.m., with 17 hours until tomorrow's 3 p.m. wedding. Executed immediately. Okay, I'll prepare the documents right away. After hanging up, I left the hotel. The night breeze was cool, but I felt an unprecedented clarity. Leon, you think I'm a fool? Starting tonight, I'll show you what true despair is. Back home, the vast villa felt empty. Tomorrow, it should have been filled with flowers, welcoming my new life. But now, everything was different. I turned on my computer and logged into the Sue Group's internal system. As the chairman, I had the highest access privileges. For the past 3 years, Leon had been serving as vice president, managing several key projects under him. He thought he was clever, but I had seen every one of his moves. He had recently been operating a real estate project with an investment of up to $1.5 billion, if this project went wrong. My lips curled slightly upward. Tomorrow should have been my happiest day, but now, it would become the beginning of Leon's deepest despair. At 5 a.m., my phone rang. Sophia, what's going on? I just received notification that the wedding is cancelled? Leon's voice carried anxiety. Leaning against the headboard, I looked at the gradually brightening sky outside. The wedding is indeed cancelled. Why? Wasn't everything fine yesterday? Yesterday was indeed fine, I saw a very exciting scene. My voice was calm. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. Sophia, what are you talking about? Room 1208 at the Grand Hyatt Hotel, what do you think I'm talking about? Leon's voice began to tremble. It's been 3 years, Leon, I really trusted you. I chuckled lightly, I even gave you the company's shares. Sophia, let me explain. No need to explain, the lawyer will contact you. I hung up directly. The phone rang again immediately, and I turned it off. At 7 o'clock, I drove to the company. The Sue building was quiet on the weekend, but I knew today would be eventful. Sophia, the documents are ready. Attorney Charles was already waiting in my office. How did Leon react? His lawyer has contacted me, wanting to negotiate. Attorney Charles adjusted his glasses, but according to the contract terms, we are fully in the right. Very good, proceed according to legal procedures. I took the documents. By the way, there's one more thing. Go ahead. The Binhai New City project that Leon is in charge of, I want a full audit. Attorney Charles was stunned for a moment. Sophia, auditing now might. Now is the perfect time. I looked out the window. I suspect there's a problem with this project. In fact, it wasn't suspicion, I was certain. Last night, I reviewed the company's internal data and found many suspicious points. The land cost for the Binhai New City project was 30% higher than market price, and the seller was a company called YP Real Estate. I checked YP Real Estate's business registration, the legal representative was Vivian. Leon and Vivian had teamed up to siphon money from the Sue Group, and I had been oblivious like a fool. Attorney Charles, please check all transaction records for YP Real Estate. Okay, I'll arrange it right away. After Attorney Charles left, my assistant Jason came in. Sophia, there are many media outside asking about the wedding. Tell them that Miss Sophia of the Sue Group has decided to cancel the wedding upon discovering her fiancé's infidelity. Jason's eyes widened. Sophia, saying it like that. Say it exactly like that, not a word less. I wanted the whole city to know what kind of person Leon was. At noon, I turned my phone back on. There were 73 missed calls, mostly from Leon. I didn't call back but dialed Vivian instead. Sophia? Vivian's voice carried a tentative tone. Vivian, I heard you were quite busy last night. I don't know what you're talking about. Room 1208 at the Grand Hyatt, YP Real Estate, Binhai New City project, do you think I need to spell it out more clearly? There was the sound of something dropping on the other end. Sophia, I can explain. No need to explain, see you in court. I hung up, feeling an unprecedented sense of relief. At 3 p.m., which should have been the time for my wedding, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window in my office, watching the bustling traffic below. Sophia, the audit results are out. Attorney Charles hurried in, his face grave. The Binhai New City project, from land purchase to construction funds, involves a total embezzlement of $2.3 billion in company funds. My hands clenched into fists. Is the evidence solid? Completely solid, we've already reported it to the procuratorate. $2.3 billion, that was my father's lifelong effort. I took a deep breath. Any other findings? Leon's personal account has numerous suspicious transfers in the past 6 months, preliminarily estimated at least $50 million. And Vivian's YP Real Estate has a registered capital of only $1 million, but bank statements show she recently purchased a luxury mansion and items worth $30 million. I nodded. Report it to the police. Already done, the police should arrive soon. Just then, the secretary knocked and entered. Sophia, Leon is downstairs and says he wants to see you. I checked the time, it was 3:05 p.m. Let him come up, one last meeting. When Leon burst into my office, his face still bore the fatigue from last night. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, completely lacking his usual poise. Sophia, are you crazy? His voice was nearly a roar. Do you know what you're doing? I sat behind my desk, calmly looking at him. I'm very clear-headed, Leon. We can discuss the shares slowly, but why did you report me? His eyes were filled with anger. We've been together for 3 years, don't you have any feelings at all? Feelings? I chuckled lightly. When you slept with my best friend, did you consider feelings? That was just a moment of impulse. A moment of impulse? I opened my computer, displaying an investigation report on the screen. Vivian's YP Real Estate was established 2 years ago. In those 2 years, you conducted 8 transactions totaling $3.2 billion. Tell me this is a moment of impulse? Leon's face instantly turned pale. Furthermore, I continued, do you know what I admire most about you? He didn't answer, just staring at me intently. I admire your acting skills. For 3 years, you played the devoted boyfriend in front of me, even proactively suggesting a prenuptial agreement to prove you weren't with me for the money. I stood up and walked to him, but in reality, you had long conspired with Vivian to launder money through her company. You have no evidence. Leon's voice trembled. Evidence? I picked up a folder from the desk, bank transfer records, property purchase contracts, and your chat logs. You think deleting them makes them gone? My IT department isn't idle. Leon collapsed onto the sofa, holding his head in his hands. Sophia, let's discuss terms. He looked up, his eyes full of pleading. I'll return all the money to the company, let's start over, okay? Start over? I walked back to my desk. Leon, do you know how I've lived these 3 years? He looked at me without answering. I worked 14 hours a day to ensure my father's legacy wasn't ruined in my hands. I turned down all social activities just to spend more time with you. I even learned to cook because you said you liked home-cooked meals. My voice began to tremble. And you? You performed a 3-year act in front of me. Sophia, I know I was wrong. You don't know you were wrong, you know you were caught. I interrupted him. If someone hadn't sent me that message, were you planning to act for a lifetime? A flash of surprise crossed Leon's eyes. What message? Yesterday's anonymous message telling me you were at the Grand Hyatt. I stared into his eyes. What? You didn't know? He shook his head. I didn't know, we were very careful. Seeing his reaction, a question arose in my mind. If it wasn't Leon or Vivian who sent the message, who was it? But now wasn't the time to think about that. Leon, the police should be on their way now. I checked the time. You have 10 minutes to decide, confess voluntarily or wait to be arrested. He stood up abruptly. Are you really going to be so ruthless? Ruthless? I sneered. When you embezzled $2.3 billion from the company, did you think to show me mercy? That money was all invested in the project, not squandered. Invested in the project? I picked up another document. The land cost for Binhai New City was $300 million, actual value $80 million. Where did the difference go? Construction budget $1.2 billion, actual cost $700 million. Where did that difference go? Leon opened his mouth but couldn't speak. And the $50 million in your personal account, buying yachts, sports cars, diamond necklaces for Vivian. Were those also project investments? Just then, the office door was pushed open, and 2 police officers entered. Who is Mr. Leon? Leon glanced at me, his eyes full of despair and anger. I am. Mr. Leon, we've received a report suspecting you of embezzling company funds. Please come with us. As the police handcuffed Leon, he looked back at me. Sophia, you'll regret this. The only thing I regret is knowing you. Watching Leon being taken away, I sat back in my office chair, feeling drained. 3 years of relationship ended just like that. But this was just the beginning. I picked up the phone and dialed a number. William, it's me, Sophia. Hello, Sophia. Regarding the Binhai New City project, I'd like to discuss it with you. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. Sophia, this project. William, if I remember correctly, your company still owes the bank $1.2 billion in loans, and the land you used as collateral is right next to the Binhai New City project. What are you trying to say? I'm saying, if the Binhai New City project halts, how much will the value of your land drop? William was one of Haicheng's largest real estate developers and a key partner in the Binhai New City project. More importantly, he held the construction funds that Vivian desperately needed. Sophia, what do you mean by that? William's voice carried a probing tone. William, we're both smart people, let's be straightforward. I leaned back in my chair. The Binhai New City project is now facing a full audit and is likely to be halted. And the value of the complementary land you've invested in entirely depends on Binhai New City's success. If the project stops, what about your $1.2 billion bank loan? There was the sound of a chair turning on the other end. William was clearly thinking. Sophia, what do you mean? My meaning is simple. Stop providing any financial support to Vivian's YP real estate. But we've already signed a contract. Contracts can be terminated, especially when the other party is suspected of fraud. I opened my computer, reviewing Vivian's information. YP Real Estate has a registered capital of $1 million but undertook a $3 billion project. Don't you find that strange? William fell silent. William, I'll give you 10 minutes to consider. After 10 minutes, I'll announce the audit results of the Binhai New City project. Then, how much your stocks will drop, I wouldn't know. Sophia, are you threatening me? I'm saving you. My voice was calm. Do you think my words are credible, or those of a shell company with only $1 million in registered capital? After hanging up, I checked the time. It was 4 p.m. At this moment, Vivian should be anxiously awaiting William's funds. As per her and Leon's plan, today was the payment date for the second phase of the Binhai New City project's construction funds. My phone rang from an unknown number. Hello? Sophia, it's me. Vivian's voice carried a sobbing tone. Vivian, what's wrong? I pretended to be concerned. Sophia, I know I was wrong. Can you let us go? Let you go? I don't understand what you mean. Leon has been arrested. Are you satisfied now? Vivian's voice became sharp. We are truly in love, unlike you, who only knows how to throw money at people. I laughed. Vivian, are you sure you love Leon, not the money he could get from me? What do you mean? If Leon were an ordinary person without the ability to get money from the Sioux group, would you still be with him? There was silence on the other end. Vivian, we've known each other for 10 years, since university. In these 10 years, how many boyfriends have you had? Each one wealthier than the last. My voice turned cold. You think I don't know your intentions? I'm not that kind of person. Not that kind? Then can you explain why YP Real Estate's bank account has $30 million used for purchasing luxury goods and properties? Vivian fell silent again. Also, can you explain why your company undertook a $3 billion project with only $1 million in registered capital? That money was given to me by Leon. Given by Leon? I sneered. Where did Leon's money come from? Wasn't it embezzled from the Sioux group? Vivian, now that Leon has been arrested, do you think you can escape unscathed? Sobbing sounds came from the other end. Sophia, we're best friends, you can't do this to me. Friends? My voice rose an octave. Would a friend sleep with her friend's boyfriend? Would a friend help her boyfriend steal money from her friend's company? I didn't steal money, that money was invested in the project. Invested in the project? Then why was the actual construction cost only half the budget? Why does your company account have $30 million in personal expenditures? Vivian cried even harder. Sophia, please, let me go. I'll return all the money to you. Let's start over, okay? Start over? I looked at the setting sun outside. Vivian, some things can't be started over. Then what do you want? Vivian's voice began to carry anger. I don't want anything, I just want back what's mine. You've already reclaimed the shares, what more do you want? What I want isn't just the shares. I stood up and walked to the window. I want everyone to know the cost of betraying Sophia. You're crazy. I'm not crazy, I'm very clear-headed. My voice became soft, but each word was clearly audible. Vivian, do you remember what you said last night? You called me an old woman, said I only know how to throw money at people. Today, I'll show you just how powerful this old woman's money is. I hung up. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was William. Sophia, I've thought it over. William, please speak. I've decided to terminate cooperation with YP Real Estate. A wise choice. After hanging up, I dialed another number. Lawrence, it's me, Sophia. Regarding YP Real Estate's loan application, I'd like to discuss it with you. At 8 p.m., I sat in my office, looking at over 30 documents on the desk. These were Vivian's YP Real Estate loan applications and cooperation agreements with various banks. As the chairman of the Sue Group, I held significant influence in Haiching's business community. More importantly, the Sue Group had substantial deposits and business dealings with these banks. My words carried weight. Sophia, the last bank has replied. Assistant Jason came in and handed me a fax. Hengxin Bank has decided to freeze all of YP Real Estate's accounts pending judicial investigation. I nodded. And the other banks? Bank A rejected YP Real Estate's loan application. Bank B demands immediate repayment of existing loans. Bank C has terminated all business dealings. Jason reported one by one. Basically, YP Real Estate has been blacklisted by the entire banking system. I looked at the night view outside. Haiching's lights brilliant, but I knew tonight would be sleepless for Vivian. Sophia, there's one more thing. Jason hesitated. The construction party for the Binhai New City project just issued an announcement demanding immediate payment of overdue project funds from YP Real Estate, or they will halt work and pursue breach penalties. How much is overdue? 80 million. I smiled. This 80 million was the final straw that broke the camel's back. Vivian's YP Real Estate accounts were frozen, bank loans rejected, partners withdrawing capital one after another, and now even the construction party was pursuing debts. Her funding chain was completely broken. Sophia, Miss Vivian is downstairs and says she wants to see you. The front desk called in. Let her come up. A few minutes later, Vivian appeared at my office door. Her eyes were red and swollen, her hair disheveled, completely lacking her former elegance. Sophia. Her voice was hoarse. Sit down. I pointed to the sofa. After Vivian sat, she clasped her hands tightly, looking at me. Sophia, why are you doing this to me? What have I done to you? My voice was calm. You know, the banks, partners, and construction party, it's all you're doing. Her eyes were full of rage. Do you hate me that much? Hate? I shook my head. Vivian, I don't hate you, I just want my money back. What money? Of the 2.3 billion Leon embezzled from the Sue Group, 1.5 billion flowed into your YP Real Estate. I took out an audit report. Of this 1.5 billion, 800 million was for land purchase, but the actual value is only 300 million. Where did the difference go? Vivian lowered her head, not daring to look at me. And the remaining 700 million, nominally for construction, but actually only 300 million was spent. Where did the other 400 million go? I continued asking. I used it for investments. Investments? I flipped open another document, a 30 million mansion, a 10 million sports car, 8 million jewelry, 5 million art pieces. Are these called investments? Vivian looked up, her eyes full of despair. Sophia, I know I was wrong, I'll return all the money to you, okay? Return? I sneered. With what? Your company accounts are frozen, bank loans rejected, partners withdrawn, you can't even come up with 80 million for project payments now, and you talk about returning money? I can sell the house, the car, the jewelry. Those things together are worth at most 20 million, you still owe 1.3 billion. Vivian collapsed on the sofa, holding her head and sobbing. Why? Why are you doing this to me? She asked through tears. We're best friends. Friends? I stood up and walked to her. Vivian, do you remember our first meeting? She looked up, her eyes teary and blurred. On the first day of university, you were wearing cheap clothes, holding a student loan. I pitied you and took the initiative to befriend you. My voice was soft. But each word like a knife. For 4 years of university, I bought you clothes, treated you to meals, even helped with your living expenses. After graduation, you couldn't find a job, I let you work at the Sioux Group. You said you wanted to start a business, I lent you $5 million in startup funds. I squatted down, looking into her eyes. Do you remember all this? Vivian nodded, crying even harder. Then do you remember, 3 years ago when my dad passed away, I called you crying, what did you say? She shook her head. You said you were busy and told me to be strong on my own. My voice began to tremble. That night, I stayed alone in the funeral home until dawn. Sophia, And 2 years ago when I was hospitalized, I messaged you, what did you reply? I don't remember. You said you were vacationing in the Maldives and it wasn't convenient to return. My eyes filled with tears. That time, I lay in the hospital for a week, with no friends visiting. Vivian cried speechlessly. Vivian, is this your so-called friendship? I stood up. You only think of me when you're short of money, forget me when you have a boyfriend, and now you talk to me about friendship? Sophia, I was wrong, I really was. You were wrong? I sneered. Your mistake wasn't betraying me, it was getting caught by me. I walked back to my desk and picked up the phone. I'll give you 2 choices now. I looked at her. First, turn yourself in to the police voluntarily for leniency. Second, wait to be arrested and regret slowly in prison. Sophia, you can't do this. I can. My voice was firm, and I will. Just then, my phone rang from an unknown number. Miss Sophia, we are from the Haicheng Police Economic Investigation Brigade. Are you available now? Yes, please speak. Regarding the case of Vivian suspected of fraud, we have gathered sufficient evidence and now need to arrest her. Where is she now? I looked at Vivian sobbing on the sofa. She's in my office. We'll be right over. After hanging up, I said to Vivian, Vivian, your time is up. When the police arrived, Vivian had cried, her eyes swollen like walnuts. She looked at the 2 entering officers, her whole body trembling. Miss Vivian, we are from Haicheng Police Station Division 1, we are now arresting you in accordance with the law. The police showed the arrest warrant. Wait. Vivian suddenly stood up, looking at me. Sophia, are you really going to be so heartless? I didn't answer, just quietly watching her. Fine, since you don't care about old feelings, I have nothing more to say. A malicious glint flashed in Vivian's eyes. But Sophia, do you think you're clean? What do you want to say? The Binhai New City project wasn't just Leon operating alone. Vivian sneered. Your finance director Martin, procurement director Howard, and your assistant Jason, they all had a part. My heart sank, but I remained calm on the surface. Do you have evidence? Evidence? Vivian took out her phone. Leon was smart, every account had their signatures confirming. If I go down, none of them will escape. I glanced at Jason standing nearby, her face had turned pale. Sophia, do you think you can destroy all of us alone? Vivian's voice became sharp. Let me tell you, before Leon was arrested, he gave me all the evidence. If I go down, this evidence will be made public. And then? My voice remained calm. And then? Vivian was stunned, clearly not expecting my calmness. Then your company is finished, and you'll go to prison too. I laughed. Vivian, do you really think I'm that stupid? What do you mean? Do you think after discovering your affairs, I would report without any preparation? I walked to the desk and took out a folder, Martin's embezzlement evidence, Howard's kickback records, and Jason's insider trading. I had already investigated all of it. Jason collapsed to the ground, and the others' faces turned ugly. Moreover, I continued, do you think Leon would really destroy himself to protect you? What do you mean? Vivian's voice began to tremble. Last night, Leon had already handed all the evidence to the police, including your chat records, transfer records, and recordings of you instructing him to embezzle company funds. Impossible. Vivian screamed. He wouldn't betray me. Wouldn't betray you? I sneered. Vivian, do you really think Leon loves you? Of course. We're truly in love. truly in love? I took out my phone and played a recording. In the recording was Leon's voice. Officer, I can confess everything, but I request exemption from the death penalty and reduced sentence. Regarding Vivian, I have much evidence proving she was the mastermind. Hearing the recording, Vivian completely broke down. No. Impossible, he wouldn't do this to me. Vivian, you're really too naive. I turned off the recording. Leon was using you from the beginning, just like he used me. You're lying. Lying? I took out another document. This is Leon's phone call records. During his relationship with you, he maintained intimate relations with 3 other women. Vivian looked at the document, the light in her eyes completely gone. One of the women is named Lou Mimi, a credit manager at a bank. Leon obtained YP Real Estate's first loan through her. I continued, another is named Wang Lily, general manager of a construction company. Leon lowered the project costs through her. Vivian's voice was weak as a mosquito. Vivian, you thought you were Leon's only one, but in reality, you were just one of the tools he used. My voice held no emotion, and I was once his tool too. Vivian was utterly desperate, collapsing to the ground, unable to speak. Miss Vivian, please cooperate with our work. The police stepped forward and handcuffed her. As Vivian was taken away, she looked back at me, her eyes full of resentment. Sophia, you'll regret this. Her voice was filled with curses. I won't. I replied calmly. After the police took Vivian away, only Jason and I remained in the office. Sophia, Jason tried to explain. Jason, you've been with me for 3 years, I've always treated you like a sister. I looked at her, my voice somewhat weary. Why? Sophia, I really didn't want to, but Leon said if I didn't cooperate, he'd fire me. Fire you? I shook my head. Jason, do you know? With your abilities, you could find a good job anywhere. But no one would give me the salary and position I have now. Salary and position? I smiled bitterly. For these, you chose to betray me? Jason lowered her head, not daring to look at me. Jason, I'll give you a chance now. I took out a document. Resign voluntarily. I won't pursue your responsibility. But from today, you can't step foot in the Sioux group again. This is my final mercy. My voice turned cold, because you've been with me for 3 years after all. Jason took the resignation letter, trembling as she signed her name. Watching her departing figure, I felt an unprecedented loneliness. For 3 years, I thought I had friends, a lover, loyal subordinates. But now I realized it was all an illusion. I picked up the phone and dialed a number. Mom, it's me. Sophia? What's wrong? Your voice doesn't sound good. My mother's concerned voice came from the other end. Mom, I want to come home. Okay, Mom will wait for you. After hanging up, I looked at the night view outside and suddenly remembered what my father said before he passed. Sophia, one can be kind, but not weak. Because in this world, there are always people who will use your kindness to hurt you. Dad, you were right. But now, I've learned. The next morning, I received an unexpected call. Miss Sophia, I'm from Haicheng First Prison. Leon says he has important matters to discuss with you and wants to see you. I checked the time, it was 9 a.m. What matters? Regarding your company's internal situation, he says some things can only be told to you. I was silent for a few seconds. Okay, I'll go in the afternoon. At 2 p.m., I arrived at Haicheng First Prison. This was my first time in such a place. The strict iron bars and high walls felt oppressive. Miss Sophia, this way please. The guard led me into the visitation room. A few minutes later, Leon was brought in. He wore an orange prison uniform, his hair shaved short, and he had lost weight. Sophia. Seeing me, complex emotions flashed in his eyes. Say what you have to say. My voice was cold. Sophia, I know you hate me, but I must tell you some things. Leon sat opposite me, hands on the table. The Sioux group has a mole. I know, Martin, Howard, Jason, I've dealt with them all. Not just them. Leon shook his head, there's a bigger fish. I frowned, what do you want to say? Do you know who sent you the anonymous message last night telling you I was at the Grand Hyatt? My heartbeat quickened, who? Richard. Richard, the vice chairman of the Sioux Group, my father's old friend, and my uncle. Impossible. I immediately refuted, why would Uncle Richard do this? Because he wants the Sioux Group. Leon's voice was low, Sophia, do you think I could handle such a big project alone? I didn't answer, but unease rose in my heart. The Binhai New City project was planned by Richard from the start, he needed someone to take the fall, so he chose me. Leon continued, he promised that after the project's success, he'd give me 10% of the profits. Do you have evidence? Yes. Leon pulled out a small note from his prison uniform. This is a note Richard wrote to me, instructing me to transfer money to his designated account. I took the note, it was indeed Richard's handwriting, which I knew too well. Also, Leon continued, Richard has several secret overseas accounts with funds transferred from the Sioux Group, totaling over $5 billion. My hands trembled, $5 billion? Over the years, he's been hollowing out the Sioux Group. Leon looked at me, Sophia, why do you think the company's profits have been declining? Why do you think so many good projects failed? I recalled the anomalies over these years, projects that should have been profitable ended in losses, seemingly secure investments went down the drain. Why tell me this? I looked at Leon. Because Richard wants to silence me. Leon's voice was filled with fear. Last night, someone came to the prison and told me if I don't shut up, they'd make me die inside. My back chilled. Are you sure it was sent by Richard? That person said, Richard asked me to tell you, some secrets are best buried forever. Leon's eyes were full of fear. Sophia, only Richard knows we called him Richard as kids. My mind was in chaos. Richard was my father's most trusted friend and the uncle I grew up watching. I couldn't imagine him betraying us. There's one more thing. Leon's voice lowered further, your father's death might not have been an accident. What did you say? I stood up abruptly. A month before your father died, he discovered account anomalies and started investigating Richard. Leon looked at me, but before the investigation ended, your father had a sudden heart attack and died. Impossible. Dad had the heart attack due to overwork. Sophia, your father was usually in good health, with no issues in annual checkups, why the sudden heart attack? Leon continued, moreover, right after your father's death, Richard destroyed all the investigation materials first thing. I collapsed into the chair, feeling the whole world spinning. Sophia, now that Richard knows I've been arrested, he'll surely find ways to destroy all evidence. Leon said urgently, you must act immediately, or it'll be too late. What should I do? There's a safe in Richard's office, the password is your father's birthday. Inside are all records of his fund transfers. My phone suddenly rang, it was Richard. Sophia, I heard you're visiting Leon in prison? His voice sounded concerned. Yes, Uncle Richard. I tried to make my voice sound normal. That child caused you so much grievance, it's really unacceptable. Richard sighed, by the way, are you free tonight? Uncle wants to treat you to dinner and discuss some company matters. I glanced at Leon, he shook his head desperately. Okay, Uncle Richard, what time? 7 p.m., usual place, Cloud Top Restaurant. Okay, I'll be on time. After hanging up, Leon said urgently, Sophia, you can't go. Why? Because he wants to kill you. Leon's face was pale, now that you know the truth, he won't let you live. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. Leon, if I don't go, he'll suspect. I looked at him, moreover, I must get that evidence. That's too dangerous. It's okay, I'll be careful. I stood up, but before that, I need to go to the company first. After leaving the prison, I drove directly back to the Sioux Group. It was 4 p.m., most employees were working, and Richard should be at the company. I quietly went to Richard's office floor, confirmed he wasn't there, and opened the door with a master key. The office was large and luxuriously decorated, with photos of him and my father on the walls. Looking at those photos, I felt a wave of nausea. The safe was in the bookcase behind the desk. I entered my father's birthday, March 15, 1965. The safe opened. Inside were many documents. I quickly flipped through them. Bank transfer records, overseas account information, and some contracts I couldn't understand. Suddenly, I saw a hospital medical record with my father's name. The record showed that a week before his death, he had a physical checkup at the hospital. All indicators were normal, heart function good. But on the last page of the record, there was a small line: the patient may have been exposed to a certain drug, further examination recommended. My hands trembled. This line was written in pencil, very inconspicuous, undetectable without close inspection. "Sophia, what are you doing?" I turned abruptly. Richard was standing at the door, with a sinister smile on his face. "Uncle Richard, I tried to appear calm. "You're rummaging through my safe?" Richard entered the office and closed the door. "Sophia, this makes Uncle very sad." I just what?" Richard walked to me. "Leon has told you everything, right?" I didn't answer, but Richard got the confirmation from my eyes. "Sophia, do you know? You're as stubborn as your father." Richard sat on the sofa and lit a cigarette. "Your father was the same back then. Discovering a clue, he had to get to the bottom of it." "So you killed him?" My voice trembled. "Kill?" Richard laughed. "Sophia, your imagination is too rich. Your father had a sudden heart attack. That's the hospital's diagnosis." "Then what does that line on the medical record mean?" "What line?" Richard pretended not to know. "The patient may have been exposed to a certain drug." I said word by word. Richard's smile froze. "Sophia, you shouldn't have seen these." His voice turned cold. "Originally, I thought you'd inherit the company like an obedient child, then gradually be sidelined by me. But you're too smart, just like your father." "Why?" I looked at this uncle who watched me grow up. "Why do this? Why?" Richard stood up. "Sophia, do you know how hard it was when your father and I started the business together? We started from scratch, worked late nights, bore risks together. So what? But in the end, the company succeeded. Your father became chairman, I was just vice chairman. All honors were his, all wealth his." Resentment gleamed in Richard's eyes, and I could only stand behind him, forever second. "But Dad always trusted you, handed many company matters to you." "Trust?" Richard sneered. "That wasn't trust, it was charity. He treated me like a loyal dog, giving me bones to gnaw, expecting eternal loyalty." Looking at the man before me, I suddenly felt he was a stranger. Was this still the Uncle Richard who bought me candy and stayed by my bed when I was sick? "Sophia, after your father's death, I originally planned to slowly control the company, letting you live affluently but without real power." Richard continued, "But you insisted on marrying Leon and transferring shares to him. So you used Leon? Smart." Richard nodded. "Leon is a greedy fool, easy to use. I had him embezzle company funds, then when the time was ripe, push him out as the scapegoat." "What about Vivian?" "Vivian? She was just an unexpected gain." Richard laughed. "Originally, I just wanted Leon to ruin your relationship, but unexpectedly, he really hooked up with that woman." I felt a wave of nausea. "So all this was your plan?" "Not entirely." Richard shook his head. "Leon and Vivian's affair was accidental, but it made my plan even more perfect. You cancel the wedding, report Leon, the company falls into scandal, stock prices drop, then I take over everything in the name of saving the company. Perfect. But now Leon has ratted you out." "Is that so?" Richard waved dismissively. "Leon is a felon, no one will believe his words. Moreover, after tonight, he won't speak again." My back chilled. "What do you want to do?" "I don't want to do anything, I'm just a saddened uncle, grieving his niece's accidental death." A killing intent flashed in Richard's eyes. "You can't do this." "Can't I?" Richard stood up. Sophia, now it's just you and me, no surveillance, no witnesses. If you die accidentally, who would suspect this saddened uncle? I quietly moved toward the door, but Richard noticed. Don't think of running, Sophia. He took a knife from the drawer. Be good, it won't hurt much. Just then, the office door was suddenly burst open, and several police officers rushed in. Richard, drop the weapon. Richard was stunned. How is this possible? Richard, you are suspected of intentional homicide, embezzlement of company funds, money laundering, and other crimes. You are now arrested in accordance with the law. The police quickly subdued Richard. I collapsed to the ground, filled with lingering fear. Miss Sophia, are you okay? A police officer asked concernedly. I'm fine, but how did you know I was here? Leon reported it. The officer explained. He said you'd come for evidence this afternoon and might be in danger, so he asked us to protect you. I looked at the handcuffed Richard, my feelings complex. Richard, do you have anything else to say? Richard looked up at me, no remorse in his eyes. Sophia, you won. But remember, this world is this cruel. You won today because you're more ruthless than me. I'm not more ruthless than you, I'm just more honest than you. Honest? Richard laughed. Sophia, you schemed against Leon, used Vivian, made everyone pay for your revenge. Tell me this is honest? I didn't answer, because I knew he was right. In this game, there are no absolute good people, only winners and losers. Miss Sophia, we found a large amount of evidence in Richard's safe. The police handed me a folder. These are sufficient to prove all his criminal activities over the years. I took the folder. Inside were bank transfer records, overseas account info, and a detailed plan documenting how Richard step-by-step controlled the Sioux group. What shocked me most was a medical report detailing the usage and dosage of a certain heart attack-inducing drug. My father was truly murdered. Miss Sophia, based on this evidence, we can confirm your father's death was indeed not an accident. The officer's voice was heavy. We'll reinvestigate this case. I nodded, tears in my eyes. Dad, your daughter has finally avenged you. A month later, Haiching's major media were reporting on the Sioux group case. Richard was sentenced to life imprisonment, Leon to 10 years, Vivian to 8 years. I sat in the newly renovated office, looking at the sunlight outside. This month, I had barely rested, busy handling various company affairs. The Sioux group was greatly impacted by this incident. Stock prices fell nearly half, several key partners suspended cooperation. But with the truth revealed and the series of measures I took, the company was slowly recovering. Sophia, here's today's financial report. The new assistant Amy came in. She was hired through proper channels and excellent in all aspects. I took the report, looking at the numbers. Still in loss, but much better than last month. Amy, what do you think of the company's current situation? I asked. Sophia, although there are still difficulties, I believe we can overcome them. Amy's voice was firm. Moreover, many employees say they're willing to rebuild the Sioux group with you. I nodded, feeling a warmth in my heart. This month, I fired all employees involved in Richard's plan and hired a new batch. Although there was high turnover, those who remained were truly loyal. Sophia, there's one more thing. Amy hesitated. Leon's lawyer has come several times, saying he wants to see you. I frowned. What does he want to see me for? I don't know, but the lawyer says Leon has important matters to tell you. I thought for a moment. Arrange it, I'll see him tomorrow. The next afternoon, I went to Haiching First Prison again. Leon was thinner than last time, his eyes dimmer. Sophia, thank you for coming to see me. His voice was weak. Say what you have to say. My attitude remained cold. Sophia, I want to tell you a secret. Leon looked at me. Regarding Richard, there's another accomplice you haven't discovered. Who? Your mother. I stood up abruptly. What did you say? Sophia, calm down. Leon quickly explained. I'm not saying your mother was involved in the crime, I mean she knows some things. What things? Before your father died, he gave some important documents to your mother for safekeeping. Leon said, Richard has been looking for these documents, but your mother never mentioned them. Why tell me now? Because Richard has been arrested, these evidences are useful to you now. Complex emotions flashed in Leon's eyes. Sophia, although I hurt you, I hope you can truly find happiness. Why help me? Because I owe you. Leon lowered his head. Sophia, I know saying sorry is useless now, but I truly regret it. Looking at this man I once deeply loved, my heart was filled with mixed feelings. Leon, if time could go back, would you still choose to betray me? Leon looked up, tears in his eyes. No, Sophia, if time could go back, I just want to love you properly. I didn't answer, because I knew time couldn't go back. After leaving the prison, I drove directly home. Mother was preparing dinner in the kitchen. Seeing me return, she smiled. Sophia, why are you back so early today? Mom, I have something to ask you. I sat on the sofa, about some documents Dad left. Mother's hand paused, then continued chopping vegetables. What documents? Mom, you don't need to hide it anymore. My voice was soft. Leon has already told me. Mother put down the knife and came to the living room, sitting beside me. Sophia, I originally planned to never tell you these. Mother's voice trembled slightly. Before your dad passed, he did leave me some things. What things? Some documents and a recording. Mother stood up, went to the bedroom, and took out a safe. Your dad said, if one day the Sioux group faces danger, give these to you. I took the safe, entered Father's birthday, and it opened. Inside were many documents, all evidence of Richard's crimes. But the most important was a recording, in my father's voice. Sophia, if you're hearing this, it means Dad is no longer here. Dad is sorry for not protecting the Sioux group well, making you bear so much pain. But Dad believes, with your wisdom and courage, you can surely rebuild the Sioux group. Remember, no matter what difficulties, don't give up. Dad loves you forever. Hearing Father's voice, I finally couldn't hold back and cried. Dad. I held the recorder, tears pouring down. Mother also cried, hugging me. Sophia, your dad was most worried about you bearing such a heavy burden alone. But now, it seems you've done even better than he imagined. Mom, why didn't you tell me earlier? Because I was afraid you'd do something foolish. Mother wiped her tears. Your personality is too like your dad's. Once decided, you'd go all out. I was afraid you'd destroy yourself for revenge. But I didn't destroy myself, I succeeded. Yes, you succeeded. Mother smiled. If your dad knew, he'd be very proud. That night, I chatted with Mother for a long time. She told me many stories from Father's life, things I never knew. It turned out Father had long noticed Richard's anomalies, but due to years of friendship, he was unwilling to believe. Only at the end, when he found solid evidence, did he resolve to expose Richard. But before he could act, Richard harmed him. Sophia, now everything is over. Mother held my hand. You should consider your own happiness. Mom, I'm happy now. I'm not talking about work, I'm talking about relationships. Mother looked at me. You can't deny all relationships because of Leon's betrayal. I shook my head. Mom, I don't want to think about that now. Sophia, you're still young, you can't live alone like this forever. Mom, I really don't want to talk about relationships again. My voice was weary. This incident made me understand that human hearts are the most unreliable. But there are people worth trusting. Mother said, like those employees willing to rebuild the company with you, like friends who helped you in your toughest times. I thought of this month. Indeed, many people helped me. Some old employees, some new friends, all very sincere. Perhaps Mother was right. I shouldn't deny everyone because of a few betrayals. But relationships, I really didn't dare try again. At least not now. 6 months later, the Sioux Group held its first shareholders' meeting after reconstruction. Dear shareholders, I'm pleased to announce that after a major crisis, the Sioux Group has fully recovered. I stood on the podium, looking at the shareholders below. This quarter, we not only turned losses to profits but achieved a net profit of $300 million. Enthusiastic applause erupted below. This achievement is inseparable from all employees' efforts and shareholders' support. I continued, but more importantly, we've learned how to grow in adversity, how to persist amid betrayal. After the meeting, I returned to my office, looking at a report on the desk. It was the latest news on Leon, Vivian, and Richard. Leon performed well in prison and might get a reduced sentence. Vivian, for voluntarily returning some illicit gains, might also get reduced. Richard still insisted on innocence, refusing to admit guilt. I put down the report and walked to the window. 6 months ago, I was still in pain from betrayal and revenge. Now, I could face it all calmly. "Sophia, there's a gentleman outside to see you." Amy knocked and entered. "Who?" "He says his name is Henry, a partner at a law firm." Henry, I remembered. He was one of the lawyers who proactively offered legal aid during my toughest time, very upright and capable. "Please let him in." A few minutes later, Henry entered my office. In his 30s, wearing glasses, looking scholarly. "Sophia, sorry to disturb," he said politely. "Not at all, please sit." I pointed to the sofa. "Attorney Henry, what brings you here today?" "Actually, it's personal." Henry was a bit embarrassed. "Sophia, I'd like to invite you to dinner." I was stunned, then smiled. "Attorney Henry, is this a confession?" Henry's face reddened. "Sophia, I do have feelings for you. These months, I've seen your strength and wisdom. I admire you greatly." Looking at this honest man, my heart was touched. But I wasn't ready for a new relationship. "Attorney Henry, I appreciate your kindness, but I know you might not want to consider relationships now." Henry interrupted. "I have no other intentions, I just want to be friends." "Friends?" "Yes, friends." Henry's eyes were sincere. "If one day you're willing to consider relationships, I hope you'll think of me. If not, we can be good friends." I considered. "Okay, let's start as friends." Henry smiled. "Thank you for giving me this chance." That night, Henry and I dined at a quiet restaurant. We talked a lot, from work to life, past to future. I discovered Henry was an interesting person, with his own views and persistence. Most importantly, he was sincere, without any falsity. "Sophia, do you believe in fate?" Henry asked. "Not really." I shook my head. "I think fate is in one's own hands." "I think so too." Henry smiled. "But I feel some encounters might truly be fate's arrangement." "For example?" "Like our encounter." Henry looked at me. "If those things hadn't happened, we might never have met." I thought, indeed, without Leon's betrayal, without Richard's conspiracy, I might never have met Henry. "Perhaps you're right." I smiled, "But I'm not sure yet if this encounter is good or bad." "Whether good or bad, at least we met." Henry raised his glass. "To our acquaintance." I raised mine too. "To our acquaintance." On the way home, I recalled Mother's words. Perhaps she was right. I shouldn't reject future happiness because of past hurts. But relationships really need time. A year later, the soup group became one of Haiching's most successful enterprises. I was awarded annual Best Female Entrepreneur. At the award ceremony, I saw Henry in the audience. This year, we met often, gradually developing from friends to lovers. Henry was a great man. He understood me, supported me, gave me much help. Most importantly, he never tried to change me but accepted the real me. "Sophia, any acceptance speech?" the host asked. Holding the trophy, looking at the audience below, "This award isn't just mine, it belongs to all who persist in adversity, to all who believe in justice. Through betrayal and deception, I learned what true trust is. Through pain and despair, I learned what true strength is. I want to tell all facing difficulties, don't give up, don't despair. Because only through darkness can one truly appreciate the value of light." Enthusiastic applause erupted below. After the ceremony, Henry came to me. "Congratulations, Sophia." "Hesmold." "Thank you." I looked at him. "Henry, I have something to tell you." "What?" "I think I'm ready." Ready for what? Ready to start a new life, ready to believe in love. I looked into his eyes. If your proposal still stands. Henry was stunned, then smiled brightly. Of course it stands, forever. That night, we walked by the sea. The sea breeze was light, the moonlight beautiful. Sophia, have you regretted? Henry asked, regretted treating Leon and Vivian that way? I thought, no regrets. If I hadn't done that, there wouldn't be today's me, nor would I have met you. Do you hate them? Not anymore. I looked at the distant sea. Hate is the most draining emotion. I don't want to waste time on hate anymore. What do you want now? I want a peaceful life, sincere emotions, simple happiness. I turned to Henry. Can you give me that? I'll give it to you with my life. Henry held my hand. At that moment, I felt an unprecedented sense of security. 3 years ago that night, I thought my world had completely collapsed. But now I understand, that wasn't collapse, it was the start of reconstruction. Sometimes, loss is for gain, betrayal for growth, pain for happiness. I took 3 years to learn a lesson. True strength isn't never falling, but standing up again each time you fall. The current me is stronger and happier than 3 years ago. And all this started from that night of canceling the wedding. Some endings are for better beginnings. Some betrayals are to meet true love. Some pains are for growth. I'm grateful for that night, grateful to those who betrayed me, because they made me a better self. Now, my story has a new beginning. And this beginning is more beautiful than any fairy tale.